unfortunate reality is all it takes in this industry is one board member to say, I veto this.
So here's my question to the two of you. What's the likelihood that actually happens?
So that's a great question, and we don't do crystal ball. We don't do crystal ball for T360, but we do report on what is happening.
Look at my guy. He's elegantly ducked.
You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, Dwiggy, along with Mr. Crazy Uncle Keith.
What up?
So we had this now three-time guest.
Frequent flyer.
Mr. Jack Miller, the president CEO of T360.
Yeah.
We had a fun conversation. This one went long because we just went down a rabbit hole.
And Jack's just one of my favorite humans. Every time I talk to him, I come away better for it. He's on my short list of, if he's at a conference, I'm having a coffee with that guy because I always learn something. We covered a lot of territory. They are publishing research on what the top 1,000 brokerages and sort of what they've learned from doing a deep dive on them. He shared some of that in the pod. It's very interesting. We also talked to MLS consolidation as well as industry consolidation, AI and real estate, of course, mortgage, getting into real estate, industry cycles and how those can affect trends. And then, if stick to the end, because we asked him sort of off the cuff, kind of close the show question about sort of what he would focus on. And as just someone with such depth and has covered so much territory in residential real estate, his answer was powerful and should be heard. You're going to love this episode with a genius named Jack Miller. Put it in your ears, kids.
Jack, welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
It has been a while. Hold on. I've got my notes. Our producer Merlin put them in
notes?
there.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't.
I was like, you did research?
Yeah, you know that. Like, come on. So June 22nd, 2023, episode 11, Trends Report, which is awesome. Can you believe
episode 11? OG to REIU.
Almost single digits.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. And then it's been even more than a year. We had you back October 2024, episode 91, the Opportunity Report. So it's been a bit. We're telling everybody that, viewers and listeners, because if you want to learn about Jack, we've done the rapid fire questions and things, and some of those. Go watch those, and there's some really good stuff in there between the Trends Report and Opportunity Report to go check out. But we get to have you back on today to talk about nothing important or controversial in residential real estate.
Maybe Jack, just in case I can't imagine someone listening this the first time they're hearing the dulcet tones of your voice and the gigantic brain. But just in case, tell them who you're with, your quick background, what T360 does, just for context. Then we'll dive in.
Yeah. So I'm the president and CEO of T360. T360 is the largest research and consulting firm that's dedicated to residential brokerage industry. We're really dedicated to the industry that we all work in. So agents, brokers, franchises, MLSs, associations, kind of that ecosystem. There's bigger consultancies to do other industries, but we're the big one in this space. And then I personally was from a tech background. I was in tech in the 90s. I worked for Dell. I had worked for a company that had a $1 billion IPO in tech. And then for some reason I got into real estate. I got I actually had a good friend of mine recruit me. I knew nothing about the industry. And he said, "Oh, you'll really like this company. They're innovating in their space. They're doing some really cool stuff. And, the founders like brilliant." And he said, "It's this little company called Keller Williams."
Yeah.
So I was employee number 28 at Keller Williams. And I started about the same time Jay Papasan did. I remember meeting Jay and kind of that whole crew and then learn the industry through that franchisor. And so I worked for the franchisor. I became an owner in some franchises, and then I left and started doing consulting with brokers and a lot of franchisees that were launching their brokerages. And then I ran an independent brokerage in Austin with some partners. And then in 2013, Stefan and I got in business together and said we want to build basically a McKinsey type or a Boston consulting type company, but really dedicated to real estate brokerage. So we do lots of different things there's almost no project in the industry we haven't done.
Well, you're famous for the Danger Report. That's you guys. The Trends Report, which we'll talk a little bit about, and Opportunity Report. So, the most famous being the Danger Report that NAR contracted you guys to do. So the gist of it is you are very versed in the business, get to look at lots of stuff and data and insights that most people don't. I do have to admit that the way you said somehow got into real estate with a little bit of humor in your voice was kind of funny. So
it's funny. We all just, I don't know about all, but I'll speak for myself. I sort of ended up here, but I couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
Yeah, totally.
Is that how you feel, Jack? Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's such a mess. There's always
it's a beautiful mess, and I'm glad to get to be.
It's our mess.
It is. It is.
Well, and you know, the people are what, like, this is a people-oriented industry. All my friends in tech, I mean, look where they are now. Either they're bajillionaires or they're looking for work because AI just put them out of a job. You know,
right.
And this is not that kind of an industry. You know, I think everyone's like, oh, the AI, the robots are going to take our jobs. That's not happening, right? People want to deal with people, especially in these big decisions. And I think our industry is critical for that. So if you're a frontline salesperson, you probably have the most secure job in the industry. Actually, not probably, guarantee you do.
Yeah. In real estate, for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
For
Agreed.
Sure. So.
All right, my friend, let's kick us off here because I know Keith and I want to get through quite a few questions. And yes, we actually have some questions we wrote down. Those are very specific topics today. So I wanted to start out by, if you could share a little bit insights on the productivity findings from your top 100 brokerages study.
Yeah. So I like talking about money first because it usually gets people's attention in this industry. You look over our media partner, which is Real Estate News. That's a company we also own. If we look at like what articles get read on realestatenews.com, if it's about money, it gets read by this industry, which is it was not a surprise. But so we wanted to answer some questions about the different business models in the industry and, you know, how much money do agents make at these different business models and kind of what are the trade-offs for people making. So we did in our trends report this last year, we zoomed in on the top 100 companies in the industry, the largest brokerages in the industry, not the franchisors, not the big leverage, all that kind of stuff. It said brokers that, you know, that operate within one or more markets and, you know, kind of constrain that. So just the top 100. And we went through that top 100. We classified them by business model. We said there's fundamentally four business models in the industry. There's the traditional model, which is a sliding split schedule type model where, you know, as you become better than your broker, you get to keep more, right? Yeah. The capped model, innovated by Keller Williams and Exit Realty, and is used by a few other companies as well. Fee-based models, those are you pay a transaction fee or a desk fee or a monthly fee, or it's got fees as a thing. And then the last model, which is more prevalent in teams, but is in the top 100, which is the kind of what we call the business generation model, where think a Redfin or a Mark Spain Real Estate or a Jason Mitchell Group. These are companies that they generate a lot of business for their agents. Sometimes 50% or more of the agent's business comes from the company. The company invests heavily in that kind of top of funnel activity. So those are four models. And what we wanted to figure out is, you know, what does that mean to the agent? You know, where does the agent make more money and how do they make more money? So that was the premise of the study. We found some interesting things. One of them is, and this is probably a headline for us, that the companies that are focused on a traditional model, now keep in mind that those top 100 brokerages, your mileage may vary in your market. I know I'm talking to a lot of people, right? And so this is from the numbers from the top 100 companies. Yeah. We found the businesses that were traditional structure, meaning that split schedule kind of structure, graduated commission split. Their average price point was almost twice as high. It was $892,000 is their average price point in that top 100 companies. Now, lots of caveats there. There's luxury in there for sure. There's some big companies that sell a lot of luxury. But even if you take the luxury out, it's still substantially more. The capped and fee-based models were fee-based was $540,000 and the cap was $549,000, so almost the same. And then the business generation is a little bit lower, $489,000 a year. So that was interesting to us to say, like, oh, for some reason the traditional models tend to be selling at higher price points. We have a few reasons we think that is.
I'm curious. What's your thoughts?
Do we get to guess, or are you just going to tell us?
I'm just going to tell you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. Yeah.
I'll just tell you. So these are our, and I'm interested. I mean, this is one where I'm sure this is a dialogue. You guys jump in.
Yeah, sure. Go
One
ahead.
of the reasons when we looked at those companies, we said, oh, these are all highly recognizable consumer brands. Meaning it's, the Coldwell Bankers, it's the people, they know, the consumers know these brands. And then it may be that as you move up market, people get more and more sensitive to the sign in their yard. And they're like, that sign, like I want a Sotheby's sign or I want an at properties sign in my yard. I want something that is a little more recognizable to me as the consumer, and that there may be an element of kind of brand sorting as far as the consumer's preferences. And that also, I mean, there's two ways when people say, how do I make more money as a real estate agent, or what do I coach my agents to do to make more money? I think there's kind of two go-tos for me. Go up market, sell more valuable property, right? And the other one is offload all your administrative tasks to the broker, to a virtual assistant, to an AI, right? Those are both ways you make. Well, one's about efficiency and one's about actually moving into higher priced properties. And so we think those traditional companies, they're invested more in having their agents move up market because they share more of that revenue, right? And that's they're motivated more by that.
My first question, I know Keith's brain stirring because I can tell.
You see the smoke?
Yeah. Was there any type of per person production comparison in there? And where I'm going with that, Jack, is were the people in the higher price point selling 5 or 6 houses versus the lower price point? I mean, where they were, doing less, were they doing more deals, like higher transaction count versus lower transaction count? Was there a basis in there?
Yeah, there was basis in there. The overriding factor was really the price point. So that was the big thing, but also the per person productivity was a significant issue that you saw, that the people that are gravitating towards, like, here's what I think the big sort is. I'm gonna cut past some of the other findings.
Okay, good.
In there,
yeah.
But I'll pass the big sort that we see happening is that there are companies that are unit economics focused, meaning like I'm keeping the most from the unit that I make, right, as an agent, or I'm making the most from the unit. And then there's companies that are actually focused on the total income, the income possibility for the agent. And I don't know if you guys have been in this as long or longer than me, that kind of rings true for like, oh, there are certain agents where it's like, I don't care what tools or marketing you throw at them, they're going to do 5 deals.
Sure.
And that's it.
Yeah, sure.
That's it. And so they're more focused on, well, if I'm only going to do 5 deals, I need to keep as much as possible. And I'm willing to do admin work, or I'm willing to do things away where I keep more of the money. And then there's other agents I know that they want to do 40 deals a year, 50 deals a year. And they're like, I need an assistant. I need a listing coordinator. I need a marketer,
So that is my actual question for you, Jack. So you've looked at the data. I've had this unscientific hypothesis for a while now. And so I'm going to test it with you.
Sure.
Because you've looked at this data. The way I organize it in my head is full service, light service. What I mean by that is full service is they've got a marketing coordinator. They produce your social media content. They produce your flyer. You basically, you pay more. And usually those are the sliding split, right? Those companies. Yep. But if you're going to be that, you have to provide full service, where an agent feels like, I just sell houses, you take care of everything else, whatever the model is, right? Whether it's franchise or traditional bro, whatever. Yeah. So there's full service, and then I won't say no service, but I'll call it light service, where, hey, look, you're a grown up, you're responsible for yourself. We're going to take a little nibble off of your deals along the way, but everything else is up to you. Figure it out. Good luck. And I find those are the two buckets. And a lot of your luxury, because there's a lot more demand, there's a lot more more discerning consumer, a lot of reasons. But I find luxury tends to, those agents are like, I'll just, if you could take care of everything else and all my stuff is pretty and it shows up on time and it gets posted for me and all of that, I'm happy to take a haircut on what I make and I'll just go sell. Does that hypothesis ring true with the data?
100% holds true. So we also looked at that. We looked at the income. We looked at the net income.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So in this top 100, again, your mileage may vary. I'm not, I know we have brokers here that operate caveat markets, all asterisks are attached to this. We found that in the top 100, the brokers that were using a traditional model, their agents were netting almost $100,000 in their income. They were paying their broker about $24,000. So to net 100, nice 99 and change. To net 99 and change, they were paying 24. Versus in a fee-based model, they were netting 65. So about $30,000 less, $34,000 less, but they were only paying the broker $6,000.
Right.
So, and similar, the cap model is very similar. 56,000 is what they would make. They were paying their broker a little more, 16,000, which I thought was interesting that the cap model, they're actually paying the broker more and they're making a little bit less because the money has got to come from somewhere. They're making a little bit less.
Well, it's kind of the middle path, right?
It's the middle path. I'm getting some support and some services, and I'm
it can vary office to office.
I have a question. This is completely out of left field, but my brain keeps going to, and Keith and I have always taught this as well. Again, mileage may vary here, but I'm just going to put me. I'm not going to loop Keith into this. I believe that agents make most of their decisions based upon the person that they want to work with, meaning the broker. And so I'm going to ask this question and tell me if this makes any sense at all. Do you think that the quality I'm going to put this right. The quality of the broker or the experience of the broker is slightly different in those other companies as well, where they're maybe more established or been around a while, their compensation's different, that their leadership styles. Is there a difference between the broker in those two categories? Did you not look into that at all?
That's a more, we'll call a more subjective study.
I get it, but you understand what I'm asking, right?
Yeah, I do.
Jack doesn't do subjective.
Really.
Yeah.
I think that people want to run with the herd that they fit with, right? And so it's as much that broker is a reflection of the herd also.
That's my point. Yeah.
The agents that are following that broker and that broker saying, hey, we do business a certain way. Well, the herd's there for a reason. They're like, we feel productive here because we're with people that do business the way that we do business. And we're not weird. And we get the service and support that helps. So that broker is almost just a reflection of the audience that they're attracting in terms of
there's a variable there. That's all.
Yeah.
I think there's a variable there.
Can I double click on that, James?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
My version of that is when I see agents switch companies, they usually look at 2 categories total, and that's it. Maybe 3, like how close is the office to my house, which is a dumb category to use. Throw that one away. Okay. But it's who and how much. That's it. And they kind of use vibes for who, right? Oh, I've seen Jack at the marketing meeting. He seems like a nice guy. He sent me a couple postcards. I'm going to go talk to Jack, right? Oh, dang, he's smart, super genius. I think that's where I want to work. And that's the totality of the who. And then on how much, they just do a deal calculation on I'll make X every time I sell a house. Instead of doing the deeper, they just skim the surface on the math. They may over index for the vibes on the who, and they don't go deep enough on the math to really understand who, I personally, Keith Robinson, would probably do better at a full service brokerage because me in details, but you put me in front of a client. Agree. Yeah. But you put me in front of a client, promise I'll win every time.
You'll win.
Yeah. So I would actually be no, I kind of don't care what my split is because the more I sell, the more I keep, right? Yeah. We're all wired that way. Cool. You'll take care of everything. And I just got to slang houses. Sign me up. But maybe someone else who's super into tech, likes building tools to make everything plug in and communicate. Well, you might, I guess what I'm saying is I feel like they get, and this is my theme for 2026, they get all the right answers to all the wrong questions when they're trying to figure out where to go.
Well, I think there's also a lot of noise in this, because you have a lot of people that come in and out of industry fairly quickly. And I think the thing that we're more focused on is what do the people who are career real estate people, they're going to do it for, 10 or 15 years. Where do they eventually end up and why? And that's real. And I think that's reflected overall in the numbers and in terms of where people sort themselves to, where, they may like their first broker, but they weren't productive in that office, which when I was in brokerage, we recruited that all day. We're like, hey, we have a system. We can help you pay your bills. We're going to put food on the table for you. Like
right.
we appealed to that I've got to make money agent because we did actually have a production system and we fed them leads and we made sure that they got a certain amount of business as long as they worked our system. If they couldn't work our system, we let them go.
Yeah.
That's simple.
I'll tell you, the thing that's most interesting would be to watch over the next 5 years that same study as AI gets more and more embedded, where it could be, it levels the differentiation between service and support, and to see how these margins, shift. Just for time's sake, I want to keep moving along here. Keith, you got one more follow-up?
I do got one more. It'll be fast. And this is slightly unfair, so you can dodge it if you want, Jack. But let's say I hired you to consult with Reese, my 13-year-old, because she's decided she wanted to get into real estate. How would you advise her to evaluate brokerages where she was thinking about going to work based off of the report and what you've done?
Yeah. So you have to look at the life cycle of an agent's career and where
she's going to do it forever. She's never quit anything.
Okay, great. But it's a question of what do they need right now to make their next step, right? And right now might be establishment of fundamental sales skills, some broker-fed opportunities. So, they're not just entirely dependent on their database, some fundamental training around what to do with clients. So that's early stage career. Whereas late stage career, it may be like, oh, what I need a broker that already has staff in place that I can just use so I don't have to hire and train my own staff. I'm bad at that because I'm a top producer and I yell at people. So, that.
What does that mean, Jack? Did you have an experience? That's funny.
Good advice. Thank you, Jack. Thanks for that.
That was a good, really, really good advice. All right, let's talk about future of MLS.
Yeah.
So what are you hearing? What are some of the outcomes? I've been vocal, but this isn't about me. You tell us. What do you?
Yeah. And I think there's similar threads. And again, this is a topic I think the two of you are covering a lot. The MLS by the time this podcast is out, we probably will have already released this information, but we're now down below 500 MLSs. So we have consolidated our way, and we were at 625 just a few years ago. So we're consolidating at a pretty good clip. So there's that's not changed. Like that's still a big part of the story. I think the thing that has changed now is with the rules changes from last year, with artificial intelligence coming on the scene, and with this whole private listing network phenomena becoming a real thing. Like MLSs have some decisions to make about what their future looks like, right? And from the conversations we're having, there is a great focus on data rights, data protection, being able to actually know what's being done with the data. Brokers, the MLS data for the most part, and I know I was one, that data is kind of garbage once you're done marketing the listing, right? You're kind of like, I'm on to the next thing. But the data itself is very valuable. The MLS turns it into product, and product being CMAs, history, all of that. Like it's actually it's very valuable. And the MLSs are really the only party that is at that kind of grassroots level plugged into the transaction in a way where that data can be useful. But you have to be a certain scale for that data to be useful. You can't be like, oh, I've got, the 200 transactions that happen in the eastern end of Travis County, and I'm going to sell that data to you. That's not very useful. You have to be big enough in order for that to be. And then if you are big enough to say, hey, I can sell half of the 50 states worth of data, and I've got aggregation, I understand what it's doing, then you're in a position to actually go back to the brokers and say, hey, this is an asset that we've built, and I'm going to pay you a little residual. Or
is that where you see it going?
I think so. I think that's part of it. I think that's one part. I think the other part is, I watched this industry. I came into this industry in 2001. And that was when the industry was actively letting the horses out of the barn, so to speak, with IDX and saying, hey, we're just going to publish. And we've spent 2 decades of, I think, a lot of people in the industry feeling like we didn't get a great deal for, we think, the industry says. I disagree. I actually think it was a great deal for the industry to make the data more publicly available. I think it created way more opportunity.
Use of realtors went up.
Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah, use of realtors went up. People engage in real estate now in ways that they never did before, which create opportunities for entrepreneurs. It's all about how you take advantage of that. So I think the industry benefited. But where we are now is like AI is a whole other thing where MLSs, I believe the MLS of the future, we believe the MLS of the future has a role to play with understanding how artificial intelligence makes use of that data. And not just for protectionist reasons, not just to say, we're going to clamp down our data and make it hard to access and use. No, it's because those AIs are going to get stuff wrong. I mean, you guys use AI all the time. I talk to them all the time. They get stuff wrong all the time. I have a listing active right now. So I'm similar, James, and similar. You're looking to buy a home. I'm looking to sell something. So I've got something on the market right now. And my agent sent me the most hilariously apologetic conversation with ChatGPT about finding my listing online, where she asked it like, hey, I'm looking for all the criteria that match my listing, and went like 3 or 4 rounds with Chat. And Chat's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I should have given this to you, but I just kind of hand waved my way through showing you what was on the market. Right. So I think the MLSs actually have a valuable role to play, not gatekeeping, not that stuff, but actually making the consumer experience with AI and the MLS really good, where it's like, oh, I can ask questions and I can trust what the robot is telling.
I mean, don't you think, Jack, that this is the thing that I said, and tell me if I'm off. Keith, you can jump in here too. So when everybody lost their minds when Zillow went on to, OpenAI and did their whole, Zillow app, we had them on the show. By the way, viewers and listeners, if you want to listen to that, we'll put the episode in the show notes for where we interviewed them on what they built. I was one of the few people that everyone was so focused on what Zillow did. And I was raising the flag going, why is it that we as the industry didn't come up with this first? Why didn't the MLSs get together for once and actually put out something on behalf of the brokerage community, which own the listings, no offense agents, and actually be the first to market with OpenAI, and then also have something for Gemini and something for Grok, and like make it so that the MLS, to me, this is a huge opportunity, Jack, of make the MLS the repository of the most important data that drives 15 to 20% of GDP. And you don't have to worry about longevity. You can have your territories, but get a combined database together and have it so that, to your point, I think you're saying this, I'll let you jump in here, of adding additional value that you can only get from the multiple listing service. And then you've got this tremendous, powerful tool. Am I off?
No, I think you're exactly right. And I think there were I'm not going to say a lot. There were a number of MLS executives that had the same thought. They were like, why couldn't we have done that? And there are some.
Well, and the only other thing I'd add to that, and actually has nothing to do with Zillow or MLSs, so maybe it's not germane to this conversation, but don't get me wrong. I'm glad they announced it on the pod. And Zillow, if you're listening, please announce more stuff on the pod. But after I was like, so they skinned in Zillow into ChatGPT. Why are we freaking out about that's using internet thinking for AI. Like the way people search in the future is not going to be to download the Zillow skin inside of ChatGPT. It's just not going to happen. So that was more like, hey, we better get in there and get a first mover advantage. And we can probably learn some things along the way about AI and how it's going to interface with these various tools so that later on we can be at the top of the food chain when it comes to AI. But to me, it was like, no one's going to do this. Very few people are going to say, pull up Zillow in ChatGPT and then start their search. They're just going to search in ChatGPT. To both of your points where this data is going to become more important and ubiquitous. But I think we're sort of tap dancing around the real question, though, which is what's the likely, like, unless we get to half a dozen or a dozen MLSs, so a whole bunch more consolidation, like they're not, are they really going to work together? This time they're going to figure it out? This time they're going to figure it out? It's
the same governance challenge the industry's had the whole time.
Right. So
too many little organizations that will, all it takes, the unfortunate reality is all it takes in this industry is one board member to say, I veto this.
Oh. Right. So here's my question to the two of you. What's the likelihood that actually happens?
So that's a great question, and we don't do crystal ball. We don't do crystal ball for T360, but we do report on what is happening.
Look at my guy; he's elegantly ducked. Continue.
But what I can say is, we're seeing more MLS consolidation now than we have. I think a lot of MLSs, a lot of associations that run MLSs have realized, they've got a huge liability sink in the MLS,
right?
And it's now there's that. And they're going to be faced with all of these other challenges into that market. And so
I want to get that.
Like, hey, let's team up. Let's team up.
I want to get that. Let's talk those challenges. So I mean, because I think that you mentioned this, obviously, like private listings.
Right.
I mean, is this a real threat to the future of the MLS?
Well, I think the different versions of rules that are being crafted at the local level is individually threats to those MLSs, right? And they're very knowledgeable people in this space that this is all they think about all the time. So I'm not pretending I'm one of those people. Mm-hmm. But from a broker perspective, when I look at all of these, and last year I interviewed about 50 brokers specifically about their experience with the MLS. And the problem that the broker, especially any broker that is multi-market, as soon as you're like, oh, I'm dealing with more than one market. If you're a single market broker, you're happy as a clam. You don't know any better, right? You have no idea. But as soon as you're like, oh, I'm dealing in 2, 3, 4, 5 markets, right? Which is, then you go, oh my God, I have different rules for everything because they're making, and it's even more. It's even more today now because NAR is decoupled really from the MLS policymaking. It said you guys are on your own for reasons. We don't get sued again, and you're going to figure it out. And so the challenge with the brokers, there's no they're not customers of anybody, right? The individual agent subscriber is the customer, and they're happy because they're primarily operating. They don't have that multi-market problem usually, but the brokers don't have anybody that's serving them. But I think that has to change. I think that is changing, where now brokers are saying, look, this is madness because I can't deal with 6, 7, 8, 9 different rule sets for what gets entered when and what I'm required to do or allowed to do or not allowed to do. Just even one of the things in those broker interviews, just even communicating what the rules are was a nightmare. I'm not saying the rules themselves, just like, hey, this MLS sends me more emails about their social functions than they do about their rules changes when they happen, right? And so I'm not picking on anybody.
Jack is not using his crystal ball, but if the environment is there's more emails about the holiday party than there is about rules changes, it's probably not going to work. Jack Miller did not the views being expressed are the views of Keith Robinson, Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered, and not Jack Miller or anyone at T360. Good freaking luck. Yeah, that's my quote.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So I think some people are becoming wise to that like, hey, we need less of these. And we saw that this last year. That's why there were. And I can tell you as a consultancy, we are actively working more of those than we were 2 years ago, more of those than we were working 3 years ago. Like we're actively engaged in that process right now.
What about this, Jack? I threw this out there. I said 2 things today. I said, number one, I was on the Zelman's Basecamp forecasting they did today. It was a representative of residential real estate. I was like, you picked the wrong guy. 2 things I think. Number one is I'm concerned that private listings devalue the MLS. We start to have a lot of data that's not in there, or it's not accurate, or it's happening off market, or we don't have proper comps. A friend of mine, Keith in mine, is a really, really popular appraiser, and he's just like, this just makes my job 10 times harder. And then number 2 is if there is a private listings war between all these big companies. I mean, you saw the note from Eric Carlson basically shot across the bow saying, you guys want to play this game, we'll play it. Yeah. I believe my views, if there is a private listings war between 3 or 4 big companies and gobble up a lot of consolidation, we're going to talk about this in a second, but that those companies, when the war is over, will eventually just say, to your point, Jack, enough of the rules, too much shit between all these things. Let's just build our own and everybody can join that one. Is that a reality? Am I off base?
I think it's 100% a reality. I mean, we go through this cycle where people are, because listen, let's not kid ourselves. The MLSs are enormously valuable to the brokers for data aggregation. They're enormously valuable for data history. They power their back offices, their tools, all their stuff today runs off of a centralized hub of listings, at least in the market that they operate in. And we can talk about all the headaches that is, but it's that valuable such that we will make it again if we need to.
We'll tear it down and rebuild it.
We'll tear it down and rebuild it because it's very valuable to be able to hey, I can pull all the listing details over from this transaction I'm co-oping, right? It's very valuable for everybody's systems to work.
To your point, if there was one, I'm not advocating this. Some of us have friends that are MLS executives. I'm not advocating this, but if that did get torn down and rebuilt under a new set of rules, God knows what those rules would be. But that point of that, becoming a repository of data that you can sell and monetize does become easier. Because it's one
I think
centralized system.
If it really gets torn all the way down, and if we're going to go into like, we're deep in the crystal ball now, Jack. So if you need to mute yourself, I get it. Right. But if the MLSs really fall apart and there's a handful of big brokerages at the top, well, won't they just build their own?
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be easy. I think it's maybe easier for them to partner with some of the ones that are already doing that much data.
Yeah.
There's some. So when it's not realistic to say, oh, MLSs are just going to shut their doors one day.
I'm more in the camp. Look, if you're an MLS executive listening and you're a good one, you should be excited. And if you're an MLS exec listening, and you're not a good one, you should be terrified. And if you aren't sure, you're a bad one. That's how I would look at it. Like,
no, that's fair. I mean, because the ones that really know how to operate these things are all having these discussions.
They're going to navigate it, and they're going to be in the rooms where it happens, and they're going to figure it out. So,
all right. So anything else you want to put on MLS before we move to mortgage? You good there?
Yeah, I think we could talk about mortgage.
All right. So we got. Man, the latest one was Nexa acquiring Fizbo, right? I think I just read that.
Yep.
That's right.
We got Rocket acquiring Redfin. We have lower buys Movado. I mean, we got all sorts of movement up funnel. Keith and I have had these debates many times. This is actually one of the moments where you'll find Keith and I have very different.
Yeah,
we do not agree on this at all. Which makes for a great podcast. But we're not. It's not about us.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on all of this? Like, what are you concerned about? What are your thoughts? And I want to put one pin on that.
Sure.
Because it wasn't in the prepared question I sent you.
Sure.
And the litigation that's occurring.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. My opinion is
that's for real.
There's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
So with Rocket, to be clear, viewers and listeners, the litigation of Rocket being sued, Zillow being sued for, essentially pushing people to one mortgage company. I'm really simplifying there, but
yeah. So I've learned. I've been spending a bunch of time over in the mortgage industry the last 6 to 9 months, trying to understand it better because of things like these transactions happening. To like, what does this mean? And one thing I want to say is, a financial company, a mortgage company, doesn't have to buy a brokerage like a Redfin or a franchise network in order to win, right? That is a thing that they can do, but it's not like, oh, everybody has to go buy one of those. But it does, and for not the obvious reasons. You think like, oh, they buy that brokerage or that franchise network or whatever it is, and then they try to get adoption of, the agents within that network to, use their loans. And then we get into the litigation question, Jake. Straight there. We go, okay, this is problem all over the place. So fully agree that is problematic. But what they do learn is they learn how brokerages work. They learn how, in this case, how Redfin as a portal works. They begin to understand the consumer and the consumer market and that whole part of the life cycle and how that all happens. So they get a lot of knowledge that right now is locked up at Zillow and Realtor and Redfin and Homes and about, big traffic and consumer
buying behavior.
Yeah, they begin to really understand it. And then, if you look at a big company like a Rocket, I mean, half of their mortgage volume is through their broker channel, meaning mortgage brokers that are not coming through their retail rocketmortgage.com. They're coming through a local mortgage broker that uses them as a wholesaler to supply the mortgage. And sometimes that Rocket logo doesn't even show up on anything until you get to the closing table. You don't even know. You don't even know you're doing a Rocket mortgage, but it's because your local broker who you've worked with a million times, who's great at getting loans closed, just happen to use them as the back end. And
for
so
that deal.
Yeah, for that deal. So they see it as I think they see it as more as like a whole ecosystem play. At least Rocket appears to think of it that way. And these others that are copying that, it isn't like, oh, we're going to get that and we're going to try to get all the agents in that whatever to use our mortgage company. That's the dumb, obvious strategy. But the secondary part is the learning and then the ability to work with affiliates and understanding how to like get a whole real estate community to be knowledgeable of their product and use it, via their local loan officer. So I don't think these guys are, again, this is nothing new in real estate. The financial side of the industry has been trying to work inside the real estate industry, and it's largely been the financial industry largely works where they think they can make money. Like
look at that novel concept.
Right now they're like, we need purchase mortgage.
Thank you.
Because there's no refi.
Right.
And so we're going to pay attention to the real estate industry for as long as it takes for us to figure out purchase mortgage, unless the rates drop so much that we're refi booming again. And then their interest will go over to refi again. But they will have, during that time, they will have built some infrastructure in real estate brokerage industry that as soon as it swings again, they're like, okay, that bridge we were building over to that other kingdom over there called the Kingdom of Real Estate Brokerage, let's go work on that bridge some more because we need more purchase mortgage now. So
that's that point, Jack, where I have to concede to Keith that he was right and I was wrong, and he's waiting for me to do it. So might as well just get it out there.
I wouldn't even say, I'd say Jack and I agree. That doesn't make you wrong. Yeah. But I just Anyway, I don't have much to add.
He paraphrasing Keith. That's what he's been saying. I've been talking about this ecosystem thing for a while, and they want to get into it. Keith's like, sure, for the time in which they do, but then they're going to go back to refis once it's busy. So.
I believe they want to get into it now, and I really believe they wanted to get into it 6-8 months ago. But I believe they want to get into it less today than they did 8 months ago, and 8 months from now they'll want to be into it even less. Because to your point, there's just so much institutional memory. There's so much institutional gravity. Do I want to deal with agents calling me about a closing or cram in 3 more refis that could, if the closing date pushes 2 weeks, nobody cares. There's no noise. There's very little drama. People are pretty happy because they're usually lowering their payment or getting a lump sum of cash to clean up whatever, or all this stress and drama and dealing. They're not interested when push comes to shove.
What about Zillow? Let's talk about that for just a quick sec. They're obviously, the earnings reports came out. Mortgage continues to go up.
They're growing it.
They're obviously putting a lot of emphasis into that.
A lot of emphasis.
Yeah. I guess I had dinner with Joe Rath, and we were talking about Rocket, and so people know Joe. He was with Redfin for a long time. He's now with Rocket. I asked that same question. I actually threw a little Keith Robinson in there. I was like, hey, is this just a thing for a bit until rates drop and then you guys are busy on refi? And he's like, well, no, we're making a pretty sizable investment into the space. Obviously, they're going to give that answer, and I totally get it. I guess my question is, do we think the combination of AI, do we think the combination of trying to attach multiple aspects to this file, which everyone's been trying to figure out how to get the touch points on there. Are we closer? Are we closer to that than we've ever been? Are we still a ways off?
I think we are closer to it, James. I think we are, because the consumer experience, I'm getting to do this now, going through the real estate process that I'm in. So I'm seeing, and again, I'm not applying for a loan, so I don't have that part of it, but I am seeing that the consumer experience is changing with how this industry works. So I went through the process this time as the seller, and in the process of my seller disclosure, I was offered insurance that I could choose to buy through a company that does this. And that was quite novel. It's like, hey, and it was actually presented informationally, like, hey, even with the title insurance policy, there's still stuff that people can sue you for on your seller's disclosure that would be problematic, even if there's a title policy in play, because it's really not a title issue, it's a seller disclosure.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And so for $250, I bought myself some security that wouldn't be an issue,
because it makes sense.
But it was that product. It wasn't sold to me by my agent or their brokerage. It was sold to me through the real estate experience that I went through as I was, listing my property with an agent that I know, like, and trust. She didn't even mention it to me. She just said, look, there's a seller disclosure, they offer insurance, but she wasn't trying to sell me it. There was no push, right? And I just got into it and I read through it and I said, yeah, I kind of want this. This seems valuable.
Cost of a lawyer is $1,000 an hour.
Yeah, I'm like, sense. They're like, it's like $40,000 or $50,000 worth of insurance for $250, and I pay it one time. It's part of the transaction. I don't even think think Let's just get it done. Right. So
we're closer. We're getting there. The automation is starting to get there. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting there. And there's probably more examples on the lending side and kind of how those are happening. But I think the work towards making the process, it's just painstaking, because all of our systems are a mess. The mortgage industry system, I mean, they're better than they were 20 years ago when they did nothing.
And isn't there some inherent tension, I guess is the right word, between RESPA or settlement services and what the client wants? Because what the client really wants is one person to sort of orchestrate this and don't screw me, right? That's what the client wants, right? Like, I just want a good deal. I don't even need a great deal. I need a good deal. Help me navigate this process, which basically means you want me to tell you who to use and all of those other components, right? But that is sort of what RESPA is trying to dissuade. So how do those two things fit together?
Yeah, I think we end up, so you're familiar with compromise.
Yes.
Compromise is where nobody gets everything they want.
Yeah. Yes.
I think we end up with a compromise. So I wouldn't be surprised where it's like, agent can curate like, hey, these are 5 or 6 loan officers I've used. I like them all. Maybe they have some reviews attached to their profiles that are not my reviews, but other consumer reviews. Like, here's a list. I'm happy with any of them. And you should go get quotes from a few, and then you pick one and we're fine. And then the agent feels good. Like, hey, at least it's going to somebody that I know is going to get the deal done for me. And I was allowed to have some curation, or the broker was allowed to do some curation. And the consumer is like, well, I had to make a choice. But,
but they're not, but Jack, I hear you. And that's a good answer. But like, as a person buy, I don't want to do the same thing 3 times with 3 different lenders to try to figure out.
And that's where the magic, I think, lies.
Right.
I think the magic lies where you fill out one. So I'm going to point, I'm doing this to make anybody sound better than others, but like, go play with Zillow's rental management tools. Okay. If you are a Zillow renter, and you fill out a rental profile on Zillow, they make it really easy for you to go, bam, bam, bam. I'm taking my profile and I'm applying to rent these 3 different properties that I like. I'm not having to re-enter that data or upload my W-2s another time or have to do. And these though, they sound small, but these are big changes for the actual consumer experience, right? Sure. I'm not having, if you apply for, to get pre-approved for 3 or 4 different places, you're uploading the same stuff again and again and again. That drives people crazy. But if we can do it once and say, send it to these are 4 companies that are in a pool, and they'll come back and give you a quote, and it came through an approval process where the broker said, yeah, those are legit companies, and this is a good loan officer my agent likes. No, it's a little different.
Okay. Keith, anything else? I'm moving to the last topic.
No, we can go on to the last one.
Okay.
I mean, I could push back, but this would be a 3-hour pod. Yeah.
I think the general
tension is great. The tension's
I could discuss things with Jack 4 hours. So
I know that, but I think the general gist is we're starting to get closer to some of this stuff being a lot easier. And
okay, I guess I'm going to do it. So, like, lending tree's been around for a long time. When lenders compete, you win, but their share price is in the toilet. A lot of people don't use them. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Like, and that's really what you're describing. So, like, why?
Because the agent broker population isn't bought into that, right? That they don't have, like, they're not serving all of their constituents, right? And that's my posit. I don't know LendingTree very well. I haven't. They've kind of fallen off everybody's radar. I've never applied for a loan from them. So maybe they are amazing for some broker somewhere, right? But I can tell you,
their share price would indicate they're not.
Share price would indicate they're not. Usually when you see those things fail, and by the way, there's a parallel in listings. There's a parallel in listings that I would find fascinating to discuss with you guys. When you don't serve all the constituencies and you have one constituency that's actually important, the real estate agent is a very important constituency in the real estate transaction. If you do not serve the real estate agent and broker, then those things wither and die, even if they have a great promise to the consumer, because who does the consumer trust? They trust the agent, right? They trust that relationship. So you have to have some kind of value proposition for that constituency. And I think it's good. We've got some smart people, like, I think the folks at Rocket are very smart, and they've recognized, like, real estate agents and brokers are a constituency that we need to serve in ways that make them useful and valuable to their customers. This isn't just a money grab. It's like, no, we want to do business in a way that helps you be better, right? And I think people that get that, that's why I think a LendingTree or things like that, it's a great concept, but it didn't take the entire ecosystem into.
It's got to come from inside, not outside.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is a learning lesson from all these companies that try to disintermediate. Every time I see that, I'm like, you guys really have not figured out after 20 years the relationship between the agent and the consumer. That is a hard bond to break. So, all right, let's talk about last topic: consolidation. Nothing happening.
What?
The end.
There's been consolidation.
There's been some consolidation. All right, man. I know you can't share stuff because you are who you are and you consult a lot of people, but talk to us. Like, what's your take on it? What's happening? I know you guys do some of this stuff internally as well. Like, we're obviously referring about, Compass and Anywhere's acquisition and then the domino effects of that. So give us your high level, and are we in look, no secret. I'm big like, hey, this is going to start a massive consolidation like on grand scale. I'm probably a little extreme on that viewpoint, but am I on the right track?
I think I think the consolidation trend continues, accelerates.
Okay.
Because for lots of reasons, the potential competition in the private listing space is one. It may not be the driving reason, but it is a reason where people may feel that. We also still have a persistent demographic challenge in the industry where we still have a lot of older broker owners who really are trying to transition out.
Sure.
And most of them do not have a structured,
business
succession plan or exit. Like most of them do not. And we have some franchise networks that are really at maturity, which is what you're seeing happen in what you see happen in most franchise networks is usually you end up with, half a dozen large operators that own a lot of stores, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing that in Remax with like Remax Gold. We're seeing it in Sotheby's with Peerage and Majestic, where, and there's others, that's how it happened in Keller. There's some people that own a lot of chunks of Keller, not all of it, of course, but big chunks, right? Yep. Where they're in that. And so that's going to continue. That's going to continue, both the demographics and that natural progression. This isn't an industry. I like to tell people, like, think of how many drugstores do you know? Like, just name a couple of drugstores.
CVS,
Walgreens, and
CVS, Walgreens,
yeah, right?
And then maybe your grocery store has a drugstore attached.
I just think of Thrifty, but I'm dating myself here, but only because of their ice cream.
I was gonna say they have bomb ice cream and the ice cream gun. The ice cream gun. That thing was legit. John Wick of ice cream.
I think of Now's. I think of Now's Infield Drug. So I grew up in West Austin. The Now family, NAU. Mr. Now was the local druggist, and he had that store, and it had a 1950s counter, and you could go, you get burgers and shakes, and it was great, and you could go pick up all your meds, and they had stuff on the shelf. It was great. It was a little store, right?
That sounds like a dispensary in California.
It does sound like a dispensary. But my point is,
sorry, what you said, like.
Yeah. No, it's great. But
your dispensary, you can get a cheeseburger.
Dispensaries in California, because if so, I'm coming.
You're moving.
Awesome.
Totally making that up.
They really should serve burgers and shakes.
Well, it made sense in my brain. I was like, you
for
get
sure.
your meds,
You get the munchies,
get a burger, and some ice cream, and
really fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I think of that. So, but Mr. Now, he sold his little pharmacy maybe 20 years ago, and most independently operated, pharmacy firms, that all happened, and now we've got, like, most people can think of two, which is Walgreens and CVS, and then there's the third option, and maybe you have the weird drugstore that has like homeopathic stuff, and you have to drive across town to get to it, or go into your neighborhood, right? So that's where we are, but that's not where real estate, that is extreme. That's extreme consolidation, and part of this, there's barriers to entry to being a pharmacy. Right. You have to have licensure. You have to have a certain level of education. You have to, it's actually pretty tough if you're going to, I'm going to open a pharmacy. It's tough to open a pharmacy, right? You got to keep all your stuff current. So it's more strict because it's drugs. Schedule A, Schedule C, right? So, but real estate is different. We have this door that these states are like, we like people walking through that door. We get $155 every time somebody walks through that door. We love that. And then they get to renew the license. They get $90, and we like that door. And so, we want to keep that door accessible, right? So we're never going to consolidate down to we got 3. That's not happening. And we're still going to let people come in. But there's probably, if you look at all the data we have on consolidation, in the last 6 years, the top 1,000 companies went from 45% of all the sales volume to almost 66% of all the sales volume.
Say that one more time.
Yeah.
So over the last 6 years, we went from 45% of all the sales volume lived in the top 1,000 companies to now it's about 60. It's almost 66%. Based on the 2024 sales data.
Does that include, is that just brokerages, or does that include franchisors, just for perspective?
That's all brokerages that live in that top 1,000.
Got it. Okay.
Right, that top 1,000 brokerages. So we've seen almost a 20-point swing in how much sales volume. Unit volume is not as much. It's still consolidating unit volume. That's absolutely happening. But sales volume goes first for obvious reasons. People consolidate where there's money, and we always get we're going to consolidate in areas where there's more money first, and then we're going to chase the units second. So the units are consolidating about half that rate, but they still are consolidating. So what does that mean? the big are getting bigger. The operators are doing larger numbers and attracting agents that, more and more agents. That's what's happening. And there's no reason to believe it will stop happening. It probably will continue to happen at an accelerated rate now. We just went through one of these. There's going to be others. I mean, others are going to say, hey, if I'm going to compete with Anywhere Compass, I got to be part of something that's big, right? That's got some muscle. So, and will there be independents and small companies? Absolutely, all day long. Again, that door, it's open. People keep walking through it. People keep building their business. It's a very entrepreneurial industry. There's nobody saying you can't come through that door. It's pretty easy to get licensed and then eventually open your own brokerage. But will you stay?
How much of that consolidation? Just to ask a follow-up question. So I think of two things, and it has to do with market timing. I think you have fewer people coming in the door when you're in year 4 of a big old poop sandwich we get to eat in residential real estate. So you have fewer people coming in the door, and then you also have people getting worn out and tired and more consolidation than normal as well, right? So how much of those numbers are market timing and how much is the future?
Market timing is a factor, but go interview. And I've done this. I've asked brokers who've been in the industry for a long time. And I've said, if you were to hit the reset button on your career right now, you're starting your real estate career right now. Yeah. You wanted to make as much money as possible right now. Yeah. What would you do? Would you aim to open a brokerage?
No, I'd keep selling.
Would you just build a big gosh darn sales team and live inside one of these national entities?
Yeah, sure. But you're asking people at the end of their brokerage career. They're at the end of it. There's a reason. They're tired of it. Go ask someone who just opened a brokerage, just added 4 megas, has people coming and signing up every 3 days, right? That person would give you a different answer.
That's a particular demographic. That's a particular entrepreneur.
So is the old agent or the old broker.
I know that. But I'm just saying that there's more opportunity, financial opportunity for many people who don't have the other thing I didn't talk about is the skill gap it takes to run a brokerage in today, right? So today, 25 years ago, you could be good at sales, good at recruiting.
Have a good office meeting and you could have an office.
Have a good office meeting and you're rocking. You're great. You're amazing. You're the best thing people have ever seen. But now you got to be good at internet marketing and what do I do these portal leads? And I got to plug all this technology together. I got to get my AI stuff working. So real. You have to be good at way more things today. Not because fundamentally the real estate transactions changed, but how we've done it now requires expertise in a lot of different areas.
Speed and demand, right? Speed.
Yeah. And demand. So I think the demographics of the people that are able to run these more complex, big, engines now, it's just harder. It's not as easy as it was. So,
all right, my friend, what do you got for final thoughts? This was a hell of a lot we talked about.
We chomped.
Covered a lot on that. Yeah, what do you got? Final thoughts for the rest of let's say this. Final thoughts for 2026. Where do you think we're headed? Not just economically, but just kind of the grand.
I'll say the same thing I've been saying for a while. So I've been in this. We've been in this market cycle for a while. We're in a real estate recession. That's what it is. And that right now, the thing you want to do is build, because a lot of people opt out during real estate recessions. This is a marathon, and everybody doesn't have enough water, and you don't have enough food, and we're all just like, hey, get as good as you can at running a marathon. Keep doing that. Keep managing your expenses. Keep doing smart things for your business. But don't miss the moment, which is the opportunity right now to talk to people that might not otherwise talk to you because the market is tough, to recruit people that, again, when things are good, people stay where they are. When you're making good money and you're basically happy with where you are, you stay where you are, right? But if things are tough and somebody says, look, I know things are tough, but I'm going to help you in some ways that maybe you're not getting help right now, as a broker or as an owner or manager of a team or whatever it is, like, now's the time to grab onto that opportunity. And we've been saying this since the beginning of this recessionary period, is like, people will make their whole career and set it up right now by focusing on that, and versus by, being fearful or not acting or being stuck. Like, go have that lunch meeting. Go do those extra 3, outbound outreaches to other brokers or agents you want. Like, hey, you have a great career. I'd love for us to talk about how we could do things together. Like, go do that. That's the productive thing to do right now. Don't miss the AI thing. There's this is, again, like, how many we've all been in the industry a long time. I know probably I don't know, 50 people in this industry that grabbed onto SEO early, that grabbed onto PPC early, that grabbed onto managing a team early, that grabbed onto using Follow-Up Boss early, that grabbed onto Zillow early, that grabbed onto whatever, grabbed onto something early.
Killing it.
And they said, I'm going to really figure this thing out, right? So don't miss that moment either. These are really unique moments in time. It's like, hey, the personal computer was just invented.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you doing this weekend?
Right.
I'm gonna figure that thing out, man. I'm gonna make a spreadsheet. I'm gonna go. I have a list of things. I'm so excited about the AI stuff because for the first time, I don't know. AI has a huge impact on professional services businesses, like real estate and like my business, like our business at T3. Like we can do so much cool stuff. I could actually build enterprise value with artificial intelligence, and so can really in real estate. You can build stuff cheaper that's actually unique to you. That's really cool. And that when you sell your company one day, they go, that's really valuable.
It's real IP. Right.
Yeah. It's real IP. It's real IP that you can build. So that's my, I'm passionate. You can tell I'm passionate about it because I just think it's a unique moment in time where with the market being where it is and with this new, world changing technology that everybody's going to, write off, and some people go in and some people don't miss it because this is, it's a different movie, but it's very similar to ones I've watched.
Yeah. Yes.
I love that, Jack. Thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom again. Third time. We'll get you a third hat. Which is there it is. That's the mark right there.
We're gonna have to switch up our gift.
I know.
Yeah, this one, if somebody's looking, it's going on eBay for $250. Make this worthwhile.
It'll sit there a while, Jack. Sorry.
But definitely thank you guys for having me back.
Yeah.
Just as your listeners, we have a great news team at realestatenews.com. Go check them out.
Yep.
All the data and stats I shared today.
Show notes.
Yeah, go get them at T3 Trends. That's where we do all that. So
love that. And everybody go definitely check that stuff out. It's where Keith and I get a lot of our wisdom. We sound smart, but it really comes from Jack's content. So,
usually Jack's content or a phone call to Jack has solved a lot of problems for me. Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
All right, my friend. We appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks again for joining us on this episode. Subscribing now keeps us away from starting that new multi-level marketing trend.